Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. Today we're heading to Legacy for a super sweet deck. This is Bug Opposition, which recently took Pierre Canali to a top 8 finish at a Bazaar of Moxen event, so congrats to Pierre on his finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break it down, if you enjoy the deck and want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. Anyway, let's talk Bug Opposition. Opposition is one of my all-time favorite cards. You know how much I love things that can lock an opponent out of the game? Well, Opposition is a good one. The thing is, Opposition usually isn't Legacy playable. When I think of Opposition, I think of Cube, for example, and how much fun it is to tap down all your opponent's stuff, but seeing it in Legacy is kind of surprising. So it's a 4-mana blue enchantment, and it says, tap an untapped creature you control. You can tap an artifact, creature, or land. So this card does a bunch of things, but normally how Opposition plays out is you want to play a bunch of cheap creatures, then you want to play an Opposition, and then on your opponent's upkeep, you want to tap all your creatures to tap down all your opponent's lands, so they can't really play anything except instants in response to you tapping their lands. So you keep them from playing most of their stuff, and then eventually, after you tap down their stuff, you're playing more creatures. You get your board built up to a point where you tap down whatever blockers they have, and then just swing and win all in one shot. So it's not really a hard lock, because your opponent can still play instants, and they do have a window there. If they have enchantment removal on their upkeep, they could kill your opposition and get out from it, or if they had some instant speed wrath for your creatures, a Kozilek's Return or a route or something. So it's not truly a hard lock, but it is pretty annoying and pretty good. So one of the tricks to Opposition is getting on the battlefield fast, so you use Mana Dorks. In this deck, you want Mana Dorks for two reasons. For one thing, they help you play your opposition quick, and if you play opposition on like turn 2 or turn 3, there's a pretty realistic chance you can keep your opponent from really doing anything relevant the entire game. Plus, in the late game, when you don't really need the mana, you can use your Mana Dorks to tap to Opposition to tap down your opponent's land. So Opposition makes Mana Dorks good in the early game because they ramp you into Opposition, good in the late game because they fuel your opposition. And then the deck plays a sweet package of Weirwood Symbiote, only a one of, but a bunch of enter the battlefield creatures. So remember, you just want to flood the board with creatures so you can use them to keep your opponent tapped out of the game with Opposition. Elvish Visionary draws you a card. Coiling Oracle essentially draws you a card. And Shardless Agent, super sweet. Not only does it put a body on the battlefield for Opposition, it maybe, hopefully, gets you a second body as well, because it cascades into another creature potentially. And then the deck has a land, which you can actually use as fuel for your opposition in Dryad Arbor. You can search it up potentially on turn 1 with Green Sun Zenith, a 1-mana Rampant Growth. And you can also find it with Fetch Land, so it's a cool instant speed way to find a creature that you can use to tap something down with your opposition. Plus, Green Sun Zenith is just a good card because you have a lot of powerful green creatures. Your Mana Dorks, your Symbiote, your Oracles, your Elvish Visionary. That's kind of how you can get away with only playing one Weirwood Symbiote. You don't really want multiples, but since you have Green Sun Zenith, you're usually going to find one because you can tutor it up. And then to actually finish the game, the deck has Craterhoof Behemoth or Garruk Wildspeaker to overrun all those creatures. So you tap your opponent out, tap him out, tap him out. Eventually you overrun, swing, and win the game all in one shot. And you can play these expensive creature finishers or planeswalker finishers thanks to Gaia's Cradle making a ton of mana. So you got a bunch of creatures, you can tap one land and add enough mana to potentially cast your Craterhoof Behemoth or definitely your Garruk Wildspeaker. The rest of the deck, you got a sweet little combo of Gitaxian Probe and Cabal Therapy. Gitaxian Probe lets you see your opponent's hand. Cabal Therapy, since you will see your opponent's hand with Gitaxian Probe, you just get to name their best card. Kind of an upgraded Thoughtseize if you have Gitaxian Probe, because not only can you flash it back, but if they have have multiples of the same card, you hit all of them in one shot. And then some Abrupt Decays as removal. Mana base wise, other than the lands we already mentioned, the Fetches, the Dryad Arbors, the Gaia's Cradle, just a bunch of dual lands in a single forest. In the sideboard, some sweet cards that take advantage of the fact the deck can make so much more mana than most opposing decks, thanks to Gaia's Cradle and the Mana Dorks. Thorn of Amethyst not only works because you have a lot of mana, so you can pay the extra one, but you don't have that many spells compared to most Legacy decks. You're pretty creature heavy to fuel your opposition. And then Winter Orb makes it so each player can only untap a single land each turn. Well, if you have mana creatures, you don't really care because you're getting more than one mana each turn, while your opponent's only getting that one mana. Plus, Gaia's Cradle is a really good land to be your one to untap since it produces multiple mana. Then some Silver Bullet creatures, Rex Sage to hit an artifact or enchantment, Scavenging Ooze to hate on the graveyard, gain some life, and Spellskite. And then some Dismembers, some Thought Seizes, some Pithing Needles, basically removal-ish spells. And then wrapping things up, some Graveyard Hate in the form of Surgical Extraction and Nile Spellbomb. Anyway, that is super spicy bug opposition in Legacy. I really love this deck because I really love opposition. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's Instant Deck Tech, and I will talk to you soon.